You're listening to Housecast, the official Lowerhouse Cricket Club podcast. Shout out to our sponsors Spoonful of Sweets, Virtual Food Service, Milltown Pies and Rexel. Up the house.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Lowerhouse Cricket Club's podcast, the Housecast. It's been taking us a little while to get this one together. We try to do them every fortnight, but I think we're 3 weeks off now, and there's been some fantastic games to discuss. So we've got a star-studded team that are involved this evening. We've got the normal co-host who is with me all the time, Joe Martin. Thanks very much, Joe, for dialing in. Are you okay?
Grand, thank you, Jez. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, good. It's a bit of a blow after last night, but I don't know about you, but I'm glad it's over. Really, it's one of them that's forever. I'm on about the football, Joe. I know you're going to say.
Oh, not the tennis.
Not the tennis. No, I'm on about the football. So this weekend's games, Joe. Bit disappointing yesterday. Saturday, a great win, but
yeah, I think it's we're probably 20 runs away from winning, really, if we just pushed on a little bit more. But it's one of Rochdale are a team like that. Actually, they seem to pluck victories from anybody in the league, really. So
I thought that. And the way you've all been playing, it's going to happen, isn't it? There's going to be these little blips, and you can't complain about the way you lads have been going. You know, it's been a fantastic run you've on.
The team have been outstanding.
Yeah,
they've been really good. Great to play.
So, thanks for coming on, Joe. Another Joe Beneducci. How you doing, Duke?
Thank you, Jez. All good, thanks.
Yeah.
Good to see Gary in the flesh on Saturday.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, Adam would tell him. Yeah, it's so good to see him, and we'll keep catching up with him. Everything all right in your world, Joe? The selection side of it, and keep a strong side there. Does it make it a bit easier?
I don't know if it makes it any easier.
No.
Obviously, when you're a good side and you're doing well, everybody wants to play every week, don't they? There's very few weeks where there's people missing, so it does make it a bit of a difficult juggle, but it's obviously a good problem to have. Yeah,
of course it is. Yeah, and and just keep pushing on. You know, I'm sure we'll talk about the World Cup final and the wins that we've had there. So that's great. Gaz, you're back down south now. You have a good time up north. I know you're up for a bit of a family functions and to catch up with a few people. Everything okay with you?
Yeah, great season debut on the house. So a good solid victory, good performance.
Yeah,
Caught up with I was just a bit sad of you, Jez. I actually give you 4 weeks' notice I was going to be here. So I'm a bit suspicious that you had all that time to go camping or somewhere or wherever you went. But anyway, I'm not offended.
No, you don't need to be. I put it in my diary, and I was intending to try and catch up with you. I think we came down here on the Saturday, so I was going to try and catch up with you on the Friday. But then I'd forgot we've got some tickets for a gig in Manchester. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I should have told you, but there we go.
One of those things. Another time.
We need to get the van down to
Taylor Swift, Jez?
Say again,
Johnny. Ruin me anyway.
Was that for Taylor Swift, Jez?
No, it was passenger, actually, Johnny. All right, guys, thanks very much.
Jez is a secret Swiftie, Johnny. Just so you know.
I can tell.
Chris Swiftie.
I'm not sure what Taylor Swift's things. Is she related to Chris Swift?
Very similar.
I think it's worth putting on. I know Swiftie does listen to this. He was, I don't know who actually, Joe Beneducci might remember, one of the best ever nicknames I've ever heard for Swiftie. He was, for our main guest's benefit, I'll not give out who the main guest is yet. He was a little bit, he struggled in the field, a great batter, but his nickname was Luna because he looked like he was pulling a caravan all the time. Anyway, Swiftie will probably laugh about it. So you've all heard Johnny Whitehead's on. How's it going, Johnny? You okay?
Very well, thank you, Jez. Very well, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, it's just started pissing down. We're at Kirby Stephen. We've had a couple of days, but it's now throwing it down. So we're just stuck in the back of the van whilst Lisa's washing up.
Well, I just read something up this evening. Apparently, we're expected 40 days of rain.
Oh, I believe so.
Great, isn't it?
I know, right through to August, I believe. But fingers crossed we get a few games in. So anyway, let's stop messing about and get on to the main guest. He's professional this year for Lowerhouse Cricket Club. It was a last minute appointment, really. Matt Stanley and the club did a fantastic job, the committee, in getting Dan to come over, following the Indian lad who I can't remember who it was who let us down. So can I welcome Dan? Who was it, Joe?
The Indian lad. We'll just call him that.
Aye, lad.
Sach Bachav, he was called, Jez.
Yeah, and he couldn't make it, could he, at last minute?
No.
So Dan Salpietro, how are you going, Dan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Jez. Thanks for that little introduction there. I've been known in the dressing room as the Indian lads fill in too. So I've got his clothing, I've got everything. So as the boys tell me when I'm wearing a size Indian medium, it's a bit tight.
Brilliant, really. I didn't realise it'd give you his clothing. No, that's quite interesting. I'm sure we can come on to that. Dan,
yeah,
I really appreciate
on the back.
Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. We should have done this possibly second or third week of the season, but we ended up a lot of us we weren't available, and it seems that Joe Martin can't run this podcast on his own. So I apologise for the delay. How's it going? How are you settling into Burnley?
Yeah, it's been good, thanks. Settling in well. It's always good getting in the familiar environment when we get back to the club rooms every weekend. It feels like home, so that's obviously a pleasing factor. And as everyone knows, I've got the wife and kids over here, and yeah, we've settled into what you'd call English life. So it's sort of the home away from home for us, so we're fine.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's great to hear. And it's good, as you will be aware, the clubs that you've played at, whether back home or in the UK, it is important that you get that settling in period, and you get, it's almost you're comfortable, certainly going through the bad times. I'm aware that you're over here with the family, Dan. Are the kids settled okay? Are they enjoying the time?
Yeah, good. They're actually really enjoying themselves. They're in school, trying to treat it like normal life, really, and that's what they've really enjoyed most. But even our kids, Layla's 7, so we've got 7, 5, and 3. From the oldest to the youngest, that Lowerhouse life of being down there. I think last night we were down there till about 10 o'clock with footy on, and they're the memories and they're the moments that we'll always remember. And the kids are exactly the same. They come home face full of mud, with tears down their eyes because they didn't want to leave. So yeah, it's overwhelming how well it's been received. And as part of the whole group, I think, of embracing what we come as. We didn't come as just a single Indian. We come as a tribe of Australians. So it's been good how well it's been received. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, a tribe of Australians. That's fantastic. That could be the title of this podcast. And it was very much, Dan, it was a last minute thing for you to come over. We are going to talk about your career. We are going to talk about how you you started and the career that you've had in professional cricket. But just talk me through how that went. When did you actually receive any communications from Matt Stanley that they might want to sign you?
Yeah, so as you're aware, it was all very late. So even for myself, my life balance position back home, I was always driven, and Jackie and myself, my wife Jackie, we talked about the potential of coming over and doing the whole proing landscape once more. My biggest driving factor was my kids this time. I remember proing back in my days over a period of 6 seasons, and I always wanted to do it with kids around my feet. That was always an ambition of mine. And I mean, it became to a bit of reality when I received, it was probably around Christmas time when I got serious looking at coming over, and pretty much had a deal done. And as everything happens for a reason, that just fell through last hour. So then we're just sitting in limbo, and I had several offers, but they just didn't quite feel right. And then, 2 come up very late, which was in Lowerhouse and Littleborough. And if I was being honest, I would have gone to Littleborough, because my last years at Norden, I played against them. I knew all about the village. I knew everything about it. And then as it turned out, I got talking in a conversation with Ben. So Ben and I have remained across Facebook, as the old Facebook friends go, for many years. And then he just asked me a few questions, and happening very quickly, I believe. So I just sat tight, and everyone must have put their heads together and fallen into the Aussie trap. I don't know. So then it just sort of happened from there. And it was just right place, right time for myself. And I look at it from both sides, and it felt instantly, it felt right for myself. I had recollection, the people that rang bells in my head, obviously Charlie Cottam, Steely character, for some reason always stuck in my mind, probably the way he always looked at me, and we still talk about it. Talking about Ben Heap as a young buck trying to make his way, a Joe Hawke who had the biggest tantrums ever and were always aimed at me for some reason, and then the other one, the boy who's become my Dumb and Dumber partner within the dressing room, and he's sitting here, and at the moment, Johnny Whitehead. So I sort of remember all those heads, and it sort of it just felt right, and so we took the run at it, and here we are.
Brilliant. I mean, that in itself, I've learned a lot from what you've just said there, Dan, and us, ex-amateurs or amateurs that are playing now, we probably don't realise the impact that we have on opposition pros or people who are just coming over to this, this strange league in Lancashire, which is clearly a great standard. But, when we are having pops at opposition pros, that you remember it and that it can influence decisions. Was there ever any issues around bringing the children over and thinking, the schooling and to getting them settled? Obviously that's a massive part of your considerations. But, any doubts?
Yeah, no. So the doubts weren't there for me because I've done it for so many years and always had ambitions of wanting to do it with a family. That was probably what was the driving factor to getting here. So embracing that whole side of it was probably something we're really comfortable with. Wife Jackie, she's very maternal, so she was happy to have him at home. And then full welling, we looked into it and the schooling option. It's grown our children already, the life experience and everything that they've gathered already. We're walking away with a big plus and a big tick from those sides. So I think, there's always that little bit of angst, isn't it, over the other side of the world, but what it is. But like what I said before, it's a home away from home is the UK for us. So it was something where even my wife, she was really comfortable to come over and experience it. And it takes your first week to walk into an environment and go, this will be okay. So, but always had that feeling that if it wasn't that, we would have to make it okay away from the club. Accepted that factor that there was going to be. But as we discussed before we got here, children do drag you away. There are some earlier nights. There are some things that happen, but we both committed to whatever way it works is we're going to be in and we're all in. So as a family, we're all in. And I think we've felt that within the playing group and how well they've embraced our kids. It's been lovely, just have moments where they're hanging out with the kids and, we're sitting back watching this unfold right before our eyes has been, it's been awesome.
It's so interesting listening to that, Dan. I'm going to come on to Gaz in a minute because he captained quite a few Aussie pros. Obviously, they weren't coming over with kids. They were kids themselves, really. But what is interesting is the positivity in the way that you're talking. You're not saying, well, if it doesn't work out, we can get a flight back in May, or if it doesn't work out, then I will, we'll have to deal with, negative sides of it. You straight away wanting to get the kids to a life experience, and if it doesn't happen, then you'll manage it differently. Gary, we go back to whether it's Motti or Flegs or before that Cameron, they didn't have children, but there was that positivity, wasn't there, if you remember, around the Aussies coming over?
Yeah, there was, and I think Cameron's girlfriend maybe visited for a while or whatever. Certainly Motti, I think. Anyway, one of them, I think girlfriend was here for a good few months. But it was there they were early. I don't think they had as much experience, maybe as Dan's had as throwing around, and certainly of the Lancashire League. So in that respect, it's when somebody's fresh to it like that as well. I think it's a genuine, not concern, but the club is going to consider how they can help that from going south, and make everybody welcome, and really just put things in place that means, the last thing you're worrying about is, or the first thing you can continue to worry about, to focus on is the playing side of it, and let everything else, take care of itself, as it were. So yeah, I think with those guys back then, probably, I've got to say, slightly different culture to now.
In what way?
Well, you know where I'm going, Joe. It's just, now it's a different setup. It's a lot more focused. It's a lot more professional. It's a lot more structured. And it wasn't then. There was an element of people wanting to get to that point, and certainly like to, Dave Wren, Stan, yourself, Jez, could see that sort of vision, but we just didn't have that framework, did we? And it was the social side. It was quite strong.
Yeah, and I suppose, Gary, it was, with all respect, Dan, they were younger kids. They were single with the lads that came over who played, or one of them was, and then I think the other one was mid-season. So it is different, but I do think I'm really impressed with the way that you've talked through, bringing his children over. You don't sound like you had any doubt at all, and you obviously believed in your own ability. So, all credit to you. Dan, if we can just go on to, I'd like to know a little bit. I've done my research around your career and certainly Lancashire League and your crowing over here. Just talk us through when you started. It was clear as a young man, as a teenager, that you could maybe make a living out of cricket. Where were you then, and how did it go then?
Yeah, I reckon for me, I'm probably a little bit different on the whole professional, as far as a professional goes, and what comes with being a professional. And I think that's probably why it's worked for me so well over here. So my journey, going back to a young kid, like any kid aspiring to play professional cricket, a fixation of being on TV one day. So at the age of about 17, playing the state underage pathway, 17s, 19s, and then probably took a little kickback from Vic under 19s, and then was basically told, go and play Premier Cricket, because our system was within Australian cricket, Premier Cricket, and then there's nothing else if you want to play. So a bit different, where you could be a Lancashire League cricketer or someone in the Liverpool Prem or anywhere, and then you get picked up that way. So mine come from Premier Cricket, and then I just probably had a psychotic obsession of success, really. I'd put it down to that. There were many, many more talented cricketers than me around, I believe. But I just was living in the country town of Gisborne, an hour out of the city. I'd get in the car, I'd drive in, I'd bowl to the first team all day, as long as they wanted to, then go to my own training, sleep, repeat, do the same thing. I was probably lazy as far as work sense goes, going and getting a real job and stacking shelves. I wasn't for it. So I just kept getting up and going in. And it was actually one day, I knew I was getting somewhere when I could just hear at the back of the net, I was bowling and bowling and bowling. And I could hear, it was Peter Siddle go, someone's just going to have to give him a game. He's here every day. So that to me was pretty much a little turning point where I thought, shit, actually, they're listening, they're seeing this. So that little motivating factor probably drove on. And I got a second 11 game on the back of that, and then did well, and then got another second. And it just sort of snowballed from there. And then that's when I went into being contracted with Victoria. Then again, played a game against Sri Lanka, went well there. So then got a game in the Big Bash, which was prior to the official Big Bash, which it is now.
Yeah. So
the Big Bash, but it was state versus state. And that was probably the point there where I look back and reflect and think it probably got the better of me, overawed by an occasion. I'll put it as little as this. My first time was when I was playing, and they said, you're going to bowl the first ball as an off spinner in a T20. It's pretty normal. Two left-handers were batting. One was Phil Hughes and the other was David Warner. And I was more worried about tossing the ball up to myself, looking at myself on the big screen at the MCG. So that's where I look back and I go, if I had my time
How old
again,
were you then?
maybe.
How old were you then?
20, I reckon. 20 years old. So, so that was sort of like an intriguing part. And the most comfortable I ever felt was the last game I ever played, TV game. So I probably had a block of, I didn't play much state cricket. Only played, half a dozen games. A lot of 12th man, a shitload of second 11 cricket, which was pretty well regarded back home. But that's where my journey is probably more along the working class professional cricketer for a step time. And I believe that's probably built me into the sort of more resilient character I am, because I've never been at the top flight for a continuous period. Always felt like it was my last game. So, so that's probably, to where I reflect.
Yeah. And the Big Bash back then, I can remember it before it, became as massive as it is now. Quite ruthless, I guess. You're playing against those players that you've just mentioned. They've no sympathy for a young player who's just coming in, who fancies himself. They will smash you everywhere, I guess. How did you cope with that? How did you manage to get through that period?
Yeah, I think that was just ingrained in my body to just compete and fight and find a way. That part of coming up against that opponent wasn't really the factor that bothered me. It was probably more about, playing in front of 300 people to playing at the MCG in front of 25,000, and always wanted to do that, but then just how I cope with that. And that's all been my lessons and learnings from when I've been trying to nurture and help people who are going through that same phase, to how to understand and how to cope with that, and how to get through those moments and how to actually enjoy them and flourish and be the player you want to be. Because if I honestly look at it, the player I was at 20 compared to the player I was at 28 is worlds apart. But had the same mental strength and resilience and competitiveness in me to be able to find a way to just be a part of that journey, which I loved.
Yeah, and then I suppose you've undersold yourself a little bit. I only played half a dozen games, but you played a lot of you're learning a lot there through that early part of your career, and then going into the mid-20s. How did that progress from the mid-20s? And then I'm guessing you travelled a little bit, and whether it's with Victoria or to seek employment, how did you go then from your mid to late 20s?
Yeah, so for me, basically, it was from Victoria. Then I was contracted at the Adelaide Strikers, and that was a great experience. Then getting on the road, being in a different franchise, playing a couple of games there. Again, the game I went out for, I played my last game at the Strikers, went pretty well, 1 for 20 odd off my 4 overs, under light sellout at Adelaide Oval. Amazing experience. To then the next game being told you're not picked. But who can argue it was Nathan Lyon who went in for me. So as it all unfolds, he's turned out to be a pretty good one. But from there, and again, I sort of went down the business path. It's sort of that later 20s, but that mid-20s was where I come across and played, went the proing game over here whilst I was still playing second 11 back home. And I was, and that sort of built me into sort of my own individual character of being able to be a club professional. All the foundations were given to me through that process, again, about learning how to fight and compete and be someone, which then gave me the opportunity to do it in the UK and come and be my own character. They always said to me, few strong people always said, you're your own ABN as a professional cricketer. So you be you and you find a way to, to make everyone look at you and be your own brand. So I sort of embraced and adopted that and took that with me into probably business at the late 20s. So my last year of proing at Norden, about 2015, I was about 27, and then I went across and had a crack within the business game whilst coaching at Clarence District Cricket Club down in Tasmania for 4 or 5 years. Set up camp down there. We built a house. We started having children. All these wonderful things that happen and consume your life. And then from there, that sort of gave me an opportunity. I went and did my level 3 coaching, Cricket Australia level 3 coaching course, because I was sort of driven down that path from certain people within Tasmania, which I loved. And then I got an opportunity to coach and being a senior assistant at the Tassie Tigers and the Hobart Hurricanes for 1.5 years before COVID. which was an amazing experience, and gave me another side to the game that I truly loved and appreciated. But always the anxiety again. I haven't played that many games, so that doesn't give me the respect to be a good coach. So it's always sat within my mind, and it's always grabbed a hold of me. But as my character's always been, it's probably been a little bit more go get and say, well, that's sometimes that can be a really good thing. Someone who hasn't had it all has had to find a way to be in that environment, and for whatever reason, I keep gravitating back to the professional environment. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a really interesting the way you've talked through that period of, you want to continue to learn, you want to coach, but it is your livelihood. You've got to make enough money. You've got to, the way that they were in your late 20s, whereas Gary and I, and Joe Beneducci to a little bit lesser degree, he's obviously younger than us. The Aussies that came over generally in the 90s and early 2000s were top class, some test players, and for some reason they still came over here. That stopped now. That's not happening, and hasn't happened for the last 10 years or so. And I mean, I'll come on to Johnny White in a minute just to ask him about how he finds the way you are now as a complete professional. I feel that you are, and how the people like Johnny, people like Joe Martin, Paddy Martin, who are they're there now, the top class league players. What you learning from the likes of Dan and from what he's saying around that what he's bringing to the club, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I spent a lot of time with Dan this summer so far, and I think the one thing which is credit to Dan that he has absolutely nailed down is a full understanding of his own game, which I think is so important for any individual, but especially as a league professional, because obviously the fact that it's not just the bat and ball that he brings to the table, it's all the other things in and around, in between, during the week in training. He's taking individuals aside from the team net and just literally feeding them for hours on end with, breaks in between, and those breaks in between are him walking down the pitch, having a chat with you. And I think that just is so important, especially even to someone like me who's 29, not to mention, people like your Ganslers who are 19 and your Tom Walkers who are 21, all the really young players that I were, 10 years ago when you had Francois do it. It goes a hell of a long way, Jez. And I think what it's built is trust, which is something we've touched on over the weekend. The trust is there. And it's just created an environment to allow the young players and myself and your Ben Heaps to just be a little bit more relaxed and go out there and kind of just play the way that you want to play without having to worry about failing, getting out, getting it for 36 and over, all that kind of stuff. And I think that, that's what you want, not just as not from a friend, that's what you want as a club, I think. And I think it goes all the way down to the second team, the third team, because them guys are seeing it as well on them training nights. And yeah, and through doing that, me and him have got awfully close. He gives me a lot of shit. I give him a lot of shit. It's great. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Jez.
It does, Johnny. It does, big style. And this is where I think Dan's a little bit unique for us as a podcast to speak to him, because he has developed that, obviously his professional attitude and mentality, because you're a pro cricketer, but you're bringing it in and you want to push it on other people, and you won't suffer the fools. You won't take in the crap. Someone's been boozing, so that's why I got out, or I couldn't bowl that properly because I was injured, or anything else. So that is really it's really refreshing to hear that, and I think the spectators will enjoy that conversation. I'll come back to you in a minute, Dan, for how you went and how, when you pro'd at Rishton, and then you've talked about Norden. Dooch, I'm sorry, I'm jumping straight into you. How have you found, the last minute signing of Dan, and the fact that, people have to adapt? And I know Ben's, fantastic. He will do his research and know everything about what the pros are about. How has it made your job easier as being on that selection panel?
I don't think it really has an effect on selection much, really. Or what I wanted to ask Dan was, if you don't mind, obviously 2012 and 2013 at Rishton, 2014 and 2015 at Norden, where you scored millions of runs at Norden in your last year. What happened after that? Did you decide not to come back after that, or were there other offers and it was just family life was kicking in at that stage, or? Because I can't believe that after your year in 2015, they wouldn't have wanted you back.
Yeah, that come back down to a personal choice of where does life go from here. Me and Jackie have been together for some time. I could have proed till I was 50, to be honest. I loved it that much. At some stage, something's got to give a little bit. And I sort of seen a little bit of a hole within a business space for me to now pursue something else. And that's what took us on that little journey down to Tasmania and fulfilling that. But it never left the back of my mind, the whole proing landscape, to come back and to do it again. So, Norden was absolutely fantastic for the time of us where we were a couple, and a lot of players and people at the club were in exactly the same situation. So it was so hard to leave, but it come down to pursuing another little journey and a path. But the proing mind, it never left the proing mindset of would I ever come back? It's bizarre, but so many. I just remember a lot about Lowerhouse. Is crazy. I've already said this to the guys. I knew all about what I was walking into before I got there, before everyone else knew what I knew. So I knew Ben's character somehow. I knew Johnny Whitehead, what he was going to be like, what he was going to bring. I knew with Francois how he was a pro. I remembered Joe Hawke exactly how he is. And my number one thing was walking in that dressing room going, I'm going to get rinsed to shit here before me. And basically, once I built that dynamic and that pretty much that trust within a group, God, Joe, you must know, Joe, you're always pretty straightforward. Joe Martin, I'm talking to here. So you already know what it's like within our dressing room, and I'm an absolute clown, and I'm trying to get somewhere near a Johnny Whitehead, and it's impossible. So I think we've got this unbelievable understanding of each other's characters, and I mean that just sets the tone of everything. So I don't know, Joe, you're the one that sits quietly, but you see absolutely everything that's happening within our dressing room, and it's you can say it's professional sometimes, but shit, if those walls could talk, there's a lot going on.
I mean, it's about timing, isn't it? A lot of the sorry, Joe, to cut across you, but a lot of that's about picking the right time to clown around, isn't it? And that was going to be my next question about from a bit of an outsider looking in. Obviously, I'm not in the changing room, but I do speak to Ben and the others quite a lot. It seems from a character point of view, forget about batting and bowling for a minute. It seems from a character point of view, you almost have nailed the club professional approach, down to a T. And I wondered, is that something that you've always had, do you think, or do you think if there was somebody listening to this podcast who wanted to build the ideal pro, what do you think that sort of X factor attitude is? How do you think you would describe that if you could?
Yeah, my way is absolutely embracing it and owning it of who you are as an individual and not going away from that. Because I'm titled professional, if I act with a different manner and a different personality, that can sometimes uphold a different expectation from certain individuals and also outcomes within a group. So for me, if I can be my true self and go out and show that I can perform as my true self, that's instilling belief within a group. So I've always said this, and Johnny was one of my biggest projects when I come here. Johnny's a professional cricketer, no doubt in my mind. This I know it's a bit hard talking while he's here because I normally give him shit, but he's a ready-made, built athlete that is just this beast of his own, right? My thing was unlocking that brain. How can he have the same personality and the same traits within a dressing room environment and go out and flourish as an individual, as a human? And that's exactly what my working task was for him. So although I did have an understanding of how I wanted this season to play out, mine was all about individual based. So if I can get a Johnny Whitehead to tick, that guy's a serious talent. I tell people, I sit on the balcony, Joe, you might have been there on the weekend. I say, he's our club pro. I'm the amateur. He's the club pro, because the way his persona, the way he carries himself, it's top class. And I just knew that if we could unlock this human who we always talked about where your currency of run sit. So Johnny, you might be able to tell us where it's sitting at the moment, but I've always had this belief that if you come back, and his expectation, I'm coming back to my club, it's my home, I'm the man, I've got to show the way, I've got to get it done. His currency of runs was sitting right at the top, which was more important than his beautiful partner Liv. It was more important than his job. It was more important than the just meeting and being around everyone within his club environment. So where did it sit? And all of a sudden, if it's sitting so high, he was setting himself up to fail. So my whole thing of, Joe, when you ask what I'm like in the dressing rooms, that's all built on the back of, if I can show this guy my true character, he's going to be vulnerable to me very quickly and show what his true character is. And that's what we did, and that's what we've done. And you can take it through the others. You know, I can tell you right now that Ben Heap was so much more uptight, was so much more regimented, so much more black and white than what he is now, and all about winning in it as a group. And again, dropping his guard to understand that it's about a whole group and a collective trying to succeed. So, you know, I've seen that change. That's what I get a buzz out of. You know, I get a buzz out of winning games when I don't perform, because I'm comfortable with what I've done and where I've been. You ask a 21-year-old pro, they're going to bullshit to you if that's the answer, and that would have been me. Because I truly know, for me, the best outcomes is that guy can go to work on Monday with a smile on his face, knowing that he's performed and he's doing something for the club and something he loves. And that is what drives me to sort of get out there and still pro.
What a great answer that was. Fascinating insight, that, Dan. Thank you.
Might have been a bit long, but yeah, that's
it is really good to hear. Really interesting.
Yeah, and it sits like it does sit within a soft hole of myself, because I genuinely love just seeing and a Henry Cottam, someone so tense, so insecure, so trying to get him to just unlock this little kid who wants to flourish and have fun, and he walks out and he comes off the ground smiling, even if he hasn't gone and got a 50, he's smiling when he's got 25, because all the things we've worked on and tried to, again, instill that belief and walk off the field going, geez, I've had fun doing that. That's been a good day. So again, when we've got an 18-year-old doing it through to Johnny, you know, who's 28, or a Ben 36, having moments there where we're all looking at each other going, shit, this is great. And you might get onto the talking topic of our loss on Sunday, and I'll let the others answer it, what the proudest moment for me was from that day of that loss. So yeah, it's been a good little journey so far, and it feels like there's quite a way to go. But again, it's all because they've trusted me and embraced, you know, what I'm about and shown their true self. So everyone within our room and in our space, and everyone at the club, to be honest, has sort of, you know, jumped at us and taken us on.
As Dooch has just said there, Dan, I mean, it's a fantastic insight into your mindset. And we, you know, cracking, we've not even spoken, but I will sit and watch, and I can see, you know, certainly the Middleton game away, when Johnny's batting like he was, you were buzzing off that as much as Johnny was. They could see that you were enjoying that. There was a game at home, I can't remember who it was, and I could see you were identifying which bowler you were going to hit and where you were going to hit him. You know, 2 overs before, and you can see that, and you can, you know, how precious is that for the club. I mean, Gary, let's me and you maybe bring it back down to earth of how difficult it was when we played. You know, it was more a case of, you know, as the pro got his whites, or, you know, as he brought a pair of gloves or whatever. What's your thoughts of what Dan's just gone through there?
I think you're doing it down a little bit there, Jez. It was like that on the odd occasion, but no, that last 5 minutes there just reminds me of what you can't research easily. Everyone looks at the stats and everyone looks at the performances and who they've played with, who they've played against, and stuff like that. And that's the easy bit, isn't it? For somebody to, and I'm leading on to, you know, obviously around that when we played, and we didn't have 2 eighties as a club to put together, so we couldn't just go out and get Alan Donald. You know, that was Rishton, and we didn't, you know, we couldn't go and get any other test player or well-known player. We were looking at those people who had the character, you know, and Dave Wren knew that instantly. He knew at the end of the season the total had to be greater than the sum of the parts, and the person who was going to do that was a characterful professional. Now, sometimes that came across in the wrong way, but what it meant is when it was, all shit kicking was going on, that you stuck together. Like, there was no major falling out. It was backs to the wall job, kick one we all in type situation. And yes, he did his research, so they knew they were skillful in their art and their craft. I don't think we got a duffer in any of that time. But alongside that had to be somebody who was, to use Dan's phrase, all in, and would live, breathe, and die for Lowerhouse. And I think that brought a lot of people on the right way. And I think when the Rugrats and Joe's sort of time came through, I think a lot of that was instilled then, that character within the club generally, not gone beyond the professional sort of level, just down to sort of the amateurs as well. So yeah, I'd like to think that probably, the pros, they were certainly serious about, fulfilling their part of the obligation, as it were. But I think, I look back on those moments, and what I learned was, I noticed Joe at the start didn't mention my stats like he mentioned yours, Jez. But anyway, I'm again not offended. But at the end of the year, he wasn't remembering, Flegs' 140 odd off in a rained off game or anything like that. It was like knowing that he'd left, and there's a whole bunch of cricketers there who would be better for his presence for 2 years in terms of how to play cricket, not how to do a cover drive, how to bowl leg spin, or anything like that. Just how to operate as amateur cricketers in a club environment.
Yeah, and I suppose, Gary, I probably did do. I was thinking more of the likes of Craig Light and a few other characters who were daft as brushes. But the whole sporting world has changed as well. We've got to bear in mind, whether it's the professional sport or the amateur sport, where there is more science, there is more research and prepping and planning. And as much as me and you, Gary, would try and get Stan and Brian Holmes and Andy McNicholas to come down and run round Rose Grove, we were it was impossible, really. Whereas now, and this is, this is not down to you, Dan. I think this is the credit of the Rugrats, as we call them, Joe Beneducci and Charlie and Johnny Russell and those people, that they did progress into. And we clearly took it very seriously, but they want to get fitter. They want to work on the technique. They want to work on where the plans for the day. And Francois was very helpful in bringing that in. So it is another progression, but it's so refreshing. Joe Martin, you've not said a great deal. Just talk. How are you feeling? The way this year's gone, not with the results or the Worsley Cup final or the run you've just had, with the way Dan's come in and changing things. And don't just say it's okay and sit on the fence. Just tell us how you feel it's gone.
It's gone extremely well, Jez. It's gone extremely well because fundamentally Dan understands people and how to get the best out of them in ways that I think amateurs struggle with, because you're often inside your own head. I know I certainly am, as a profoundly anxious and negative person. But as Dan's come in, he's created an atmosphere within the team that is extremely positive, to just back your own ability to deliver and execute the skills that you have, rather than going in your shell a little bit and fearing the worst. And that's been the biggest thing for me, where I don't really feel anxious in the dressing room. And I think actually people will notice that I'm probably not walking around as much as I usually do, because I'm sat with the team, because I'm not worried. I'm not really worried that much anymore. I'll still walk around because there's still bits of anxiety there, and that's, it's a massive team effort, but Dan has instigated it by getting the best out of some really big characters in the team. It's a characterful dressing room, shall we say, that's always entertaining, and managing that between the senior players has been excellent, and I can't remember laughing as much when I played cricket as I have this year. Mainly because Johnny's back, can I add? But just in general, everybody bounces off each other. I'm not that funny a person, but lots of other people in there mean that you can crack a joke and you kind of get your value from it, I think.
Yeah. And that is so valuable that you said that. Even Lisa just said, because I'm sorry, lad, she's listening because we're in a van. But that, obviously, I'm not trying to be a doom and gloom merchant now, but you're winning. You've got some great players. You've obviously got Dan's influence around people's mentality, but it must be fantastic that you're in that sort of space. And I have no doubt, through a poor trot, which at the start of the season wasn't great, that Dan would still build up the team and still try and get the individuals right. Have you worked on that, Dan, as you've got older and more experience in understanding people? Because I'm sure you'll do the same with the opposition. Or were you like that when you were a younger player?
I think I've always had it within me, second nature, to try and understand different individuals and how they tick and what makes them work. Probably more from an individual's point of view of how am I going to get the best outcome within this dressing room for myself. Now it's transitioned into how can I truly get the best out of each individual? How can I have a quiet, anxious Joe Martin actually flourish and be loving to just sit back and have a laugh, and to everyone else's expense, sometimes to your own expense. But I think I've acknowledged and seen all that before I've come into the group. And when you say an alpha dominant group, that this was my biggest challenge as a pro this year. I knew it firsthand that we've got to remember that Frankie was pro when I was proing against him. Now he's getting absolutely piss taken out of him for being a big bird that can't run anymore, can't move anymore, can't do it. So I'm proing why that is. So that's one dynamic that I knew that I was going to have to confront. A Johnny Whitehead who's been around doing it all, wanting to, be a big, strong alpha boy within a room. I've got to come back and impress. Ben Heap's done it all before. He's been doing it for years. Don't come in my space because I'm black and white and I'll knock you out. You've got Joe Hawke, whose mood swings are bigger than, it's like having a second wife, really. So, so having to deal with that. But that was pretty much what I knew. So when we weren't, as much as I knew we had it, and then when you got all the players, it comes with expectation. You guys have got to do well. So when I knew turning up that it was going to be a big challenge, and that's where it stemmed on with me going, I've got to make an impact within this group really quickly to be able to show that it's not just about myself here. It's about me trying to get the best outcomes for the group, and then trying to get all these talented individuals to jump on board this train ride to actually get some outcomes. Because I remember our first couple of losses and I'm thinking, but the natural instinct comes back to me saying, I've got to get it done here. And it probably come back to that Littleborough game where I just felt like that was a day where I had to probably be a bit more about myself and what I needed to do on that day to be able to draw a result. So then that everyone could feed off that. And yes, he can still do it. So I still had to probably prove myself. But then as soon as we did that and then, we started creating this connection within the strong alphas within the group, and then also a vulnerability, to be honest, we started getting a few outcomes, and it was about, taking that forward. So I don't know if that answered your question exactly, but I sort of knew what I was in for. I prepared what I was in for. I knew that my biggest challenge was taking on this group of players and not coming into a young group that needs this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I identified that as my challenge, getting these guys on board.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I can see that, you've probably had that all your career in working with individuals and working for the team. And even if things don't go right and, we don't win the cup, we don't win the league, the way that Joe Martins just spoke there, me and Joe have spoken for years about his anxiety of which glove to put on first, or I dropped a catch 6 weeks ago and he still can't get over it. We've talked about all that. And if, you make him a better person because of it, then yeah, winning is great, and winning the trophies and being the top scorer is fantastic. But you're making it sounding like that the team are enjoying playing. You know, they are amateurs, and you can tell that they want to play and they want to be happy when they're playing. And like you said, Joe, he's just a minefield. He's, you know, you don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next.
Yeah,
Johnny, what's your uptake on the way that, you know, the season's gone? They were a little bit of a poor start again, but you've had a fantastic run. Is this going to continue? And also, the other point is, you know, you're in a phenomenal run of form. This, you know, the knock at Middleton, and then you had another ton. How can you see that going forward? What's your message to the supporters?
Just keep going as I'm going. Momentum is there, which is great. I'm in a great headspace. You know, continue to do the work with Salpietro during the week. And you know, the way I look at it is, if I'm doing well, the team does. You know, the team does well. And it's as simple as that. It really is. Very disappointed with yesterday. You know, albeit I knew that when I got out and gave my wicket away, it was putting our team in a much more difficult position than what we were already in. And I think I've just got to remember that. You know, I've got to remember to kind of, you know, step up the communication that me and that Salpi and Ben have had with me. It's just a case of, you know, taking that responsibility. I think there's a reality that's set in this year where, you know, I'm no longer that junior player that I once was, and I think it's a case of stepping up and taking that responsibility. And I think that's just, there were a few points that I want to just touch on, you know, based on the last 25, 30 minutes of listening. There's some really important ones in there. I think one of the things that is still sitting in my mind now, you know, in kind of a direct answer to your question there, Jesse, it's about being fearless but not reckless. And that's been a clear point that Salpi has instilled into most of us, I hope, well, certainly me, in the side this year, around being comfortable with your own game, but also being fearless. Don't be scared of getting out. Don't be scared of failing. Don't be scared of that duck. But at the same time, don't be reckless. And I think it's a really good place to be in, and that's where I'm at. You know, every game that I'm approaching, the nerves are there, which has always been a good thing. And I think I always seem to do better when the nerves are still there. I actually get a little bit complacent when I start to relax, and that's where kind of more chance of me getting out comes in. And I can only obviously speak to myself because it's only me that's in my head. I'm not in anybody else's head. So yeah, that's one of those things. And I think another thing with Salpi is that he's not done. He's not done with all the individuals that he's been working on. You know, there's still a heap of lads that he needs to get into and excuse the pun there, a heap of lads that he needs to get into and you know, do the same work that he's done with me, with them, because ultimately the way I see it, Jez, I've not felt like this playing for Lowerhouse since Frankie was playing as pro. You know, all the work that he did, absolute credit to him, revolutionised the first team, you know, right the way through, you know, all the lads, bat, ball, field. Salpi's doing the same thing. It's as simple as that. I've not been around a side that has played like this, been like this, behaved like this, in the dressing room, on the pitch, in the nets. You know, our adherence to training this year, Jez, is absolutely unbelievable. I've not known it be like this any other season. And you know, even Salpi is there every single session. And it's no, I'm not disregarding any other pro that we've had in the past, but we've not had that. We've just not had that amount of effort, you know, where a pro is willing to just give up the time. You know, Salpi doesn't even work at his own game, for God's sake. You know, he doesn't go and collar Joe Martin for 100 balls to throw at him in a lane, you know, hitting balls. He's giving up that time to throw at me and Ben and Charlie and Emery and Tom Walker, you know, with the sidearm. So, you know, they are the things. And like I say, you know, going back to your question, it's just a case of keep going, Jez. It's as simple as that. Yeah. I've got to keep it simple.
And you're gonna get a little bit of bad luck. You're gonna get a small bad trot. I don't mean you, Johnny. I just mean the team. But the way you're talking between you, the three lads who are on here, and I know Dooch is part of the committee. I think you would work your way through that as well. I mean, it's interesting there, Dan, that Johnny's mentioned about you working with other players and you're working. I'm going to put you on the spot here. The juniors that are coming through this year, we've probably had 3 or 4 young lads that are getting in the first team. You sound like you will have done your homework around, the Simmies and Keegan, and there's Joel Sharp and these other players that were potentially pushing for first team last year, this year, maybe next year. How are you finding those players, working with those?
Yeah, they're the ones, I suppose, that you think naturally as a club professional, they're the ones I've got to invest and put in time into. As it honestly worked out at the start, my biggest focus was the ready-made people that were there, because if I put all my time and invest into your young Henrys, your Ganslers who have come, you've got that core group, the Simmies. If I invest in them and the older senior guys aren't quite there as far as how we want to be and how we want to play, they will just fall into bad habits within that senior, because they'll gravitate to what a Johnny's doing, what he's like, what's his training ethic like, what's his care factor like, what's he like on the field. And that goes through all of them. So my biggest thing was getting us right at the top, and that only took a couple of weeks, and then put a lot of time into the young guys, so that they can go out there and they can fail. It is okay. We do have your back, and not me have your back, because sometimes it's more important that it's those other guys that have been there for years that have got their back. And once I started working with them, I just get so much reward out of getting feedback from them now. So a young Henry comes, he goes, "Man, I got into my power position. I identified that bowler. That was that ball." And just to feel that from them, and the sense of, just the buzz it gives them as an individual, that's what I thrive off. And I see that, and I do get quite charismatic up there when I'm watching it, and I'm sort of like, "Did you see that? He's doing it. He's trusting me," So again, I think working with those young guys, again, they fully trust me. They know I've got their back. They know my expectations are high. I've always probably had my emotive side's probably got me on the field a lot over my career, and that's just out of just an obsession to, again, want to win. So again, because I've got to build that up within the group when I am going through those moments, i.e. yesterday, it's all because I'm trying to study within my brain how to just win this game of cricket. So I've loved working with them. And just going back to what you talk about, when I'm talking about myself as I'm down there throwing balls, or I'm giving back, I'm walking laps with them and understanding who they are as a human. Henry, how's uni been? You finished up. What's your next path going to be like? You want to go to Oz one day? Tom Walker, another one, again, a lot of technical stuff with Tom to get him going, then a lot in the brain about his batting, but just trying to understand that individual outside of cricket as well, to sort of unwrap that whole thing. I don't see that as my job. That's not my job here at Lowerhouse. That's just what I want to do. So if I was an amateur for Lowerhouse Cricket Club, I'd be doing the same things. I feel like that's just part of me and what my interests are. And within the DNA landscape, if I stop, I'm always intrigued. What's Johnny's life? What are you up to? What's the next step? Wait, you've got a dog now. I could hear it barking. When's the kids coming? So, all that sort of stuff is what I think what then breaks it down. And although they're your conversations, I can back myself. I've played enough in league cricket, and even, trying to aspire to be a first-class cricketer, that if you can find peace with all that other part of your life, you will flourish and you'll excel as an individual. So you can put that in even in your own sense in life now, that if you can make those things less important within your life and enjoy those other parts, the time you decide to go and do something, whether it's go and bowls, and you're in a free space and you're in an enjoyable environment, you're going to do well. So yeah. That's sort of where I drive all my stuff from. And I have been doing a bit of coaching here with like the Lank stuff. And again, that's all I'm driving and instilling. You've got these ready-made articles. I'm not here to change that. All I'm here is to try and understand it more with you as an individual, to make you flourish and showcase your skill. So, and I think, Joe Martin's the same. I've always known that as a kid, he was an exceptional keeper, and he's still doing the same things. He's loyal. He never misses games. He makes mistakes and he always feels bad. So now we've created a bit of a vulnerability together that I think I said to you Joe on the weekend. I think I thought the batter nicked one and he didn't go up with me. I said, "You do that again, I'm going to rip your head off." So
yeah, you did. You did all right. Yeah, you did.
I think we've had a bit of, we've again just this. If I just come up to Joe and just said that when I first come and meet him, he's thinking, "Shit, I'm never going to drop another catch." Or if he appeals, I'm appealing too. But I think we've made it into this. We've got the humour side of it to know that understanding that it's okay. We're all going to make mistakes. But also, we're also in this together, and we can create this, this dynamic within a group that you need to be you. So if you're not you, I've always said this, if you're not being you when you're going out there on the field, you're not setting yourself up for the most success. So if you're a charismatic person and you're good, you've got a great sense of humor, and you go out and show that to everyone in our room and everyone out there, that's going to put you in the best position to succeed. So, because at Johnny Whitehead, as much as everyone says the kid's a clown, you look at him in this dynamic here, and this is the batting Johnny that I could see. So this is where I look at it now and I go, it makes sense when he's out there. He's very switched on. He's very professionally driven. That is true personality of him. Whereas if you just see the Joker and he goes out there and then has a facade, then you'll also see that that's not him as well. So that's just understanding individuals. I think we're in the classroom. Johnny's got his hand up. He's got a question.
Not a question. It's just to elaborate on the point. I think it's such an important point, because what that environment is driving, Jets, naturally, is hunger. And Henry is such a really good example. As is probably one of the, is he the youngest in the side? Is he? He wants to do more than what he's doing. So it's creating that healthy competition within the side as well, where when he gets this opportunity, he's looking to grab it with both hands and really deliver. And you can see that he's done. You can see that he's wanting to do that because he's doing it. He's doing it. The way he batted yesterday into conditions with me, and it goes back to the point as well where Salpietro was saying that working with the likes of me kind of first in inverted commas, if that makes sense. The lads have seen that, but because they've seen that, Henry's really bouncing off me. He loves batting with me, so he says. And again, it's that energy and that environment we're creating where lads are wanting to flourish, but also, like I said, grab the opportunity with both hands and just own it, stand there and deliver. They're wanting that opportunity to be the man in that game, win the game for us, do whatever, take that winning catch. And I think it's just a really good place to be in as a side. They switched on. There ain't anybody clowning around when we need, when we need to be switched on, we're switched on. There ain't anybody who's not coming to the party when we need it the most.
Did we sense that? When did we sense that, Johnny? When we felt like that? What words did I? Joe, you always remember stuff, Joe. At Middleton, I think I pulled everyone in after Johnny's obviously unbelievable performance, and I did. We were pissing that game in. And there was something that really pissed me off within what we're doing. So that was probably an example. If you can explain that, I can't remember what words I used, but
ultimately, what happened is we put a massive total on the board, and it was a case of taking the game beyond the opposition. So what we then started to do is relax, and because of that complacency, nothing was happening in the game. They weren't ever going to get anywhere near the total, but we also weren't taking wickets. So we were flat in the field, we were flat picking the ball, we were dropping catches after catches, and it just looked shit. And we knew that, and we saw that, and we knew that something needed to change. So then we took a wicket, then we took another wicket shortly after that, and then Salpi got us in, and he just basically told us, reminding us of that and why that was happening, and we're conscious of it, because I think we have been quite fortunate this year in the sense of batting first, and we've put such a total on the board that we've kind of already taken it away from the opposition. Like, they've got to pull something magical off in order to win the game. But at the same time, that's not going to get us 12 points. We need to create that 12 points. Yesterday's such a prime example, a low-scoring game. We needed to pull off something magical in order to win that game. We didn't do it. Hence why we got beat. So, but we knew that. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why Salpi's okay to a certain extent with yesterday, because he knows that we've given it our all yesterday. We tried in that second half. We knew where we failed really in the first half. But yet, we have been loud, we've been on it, we've been switched on, we've stopped the two, we've been walking in when we needed to, we've kept our position in the field, we've balled where we thought we needed to ball, it's just not come off. So hopefully I've answered it right, Dan.
Yeah, I think it was more, that's right. And it was more around that, you see really good teams, and I remember playing against Lowerhouse, they've got this aura to you of, you're not good enough to be out here with us. And that can be, on a sense that they've got a persona and they carry themselves in a way that they can take the piss out of you. But I just had to remind our group that, yes, I love the arrogance and the persona we're bringing, but to me, there's a bit of complacency in that it's a bit of a piss take because we don't deserve the right to act this way at this point in time when we're trying to get our season back on track and actually get up there to be where we should be. So, and again, everyone owned it and took it really well. And just to cap off yesterday, the proudest moment I had because we played a T20, we got beaten by Clitheroe, and they don't mind me saying it, but the way I'll put myself in the category first because I always will. Johnny acted, Joe Hawk acted, a few of the other guys, senior guys, walked around when we lost that game. It really that identified my biggest challenge at this club, and that was we're out there to blame each other. We're all pissed off. It was everyone else's fault, and yesterday was a prime example of where that could have happened, and I couldn't be more prouder of the group in the way we handled our first tough situation since getting on this great run. There was not one finger pointed. There was not one bit of moaning. And I'll tell you what, it hurt. Everyone was in a shit mood because we lost the game of cricket, which we love. But it was just the way it was handled was really identified to me that these senior guys within our group, the younger guys were looking at that going, shit, I can fail here and still be loved as well. So that was probably that identified to me that this club is certainly on the right track to be able to set themselves up for success. And like you say, it might not come in the Worsley Cup, it might not come in the T20 finals day, but that for me, I know that we have got the best opportunity to do it, and we feel like we will do it.
Yeah, and I'll come on to you in a minute, Gary, because it's so interesting listening to. First of all, Dan, when you were talking about when you've played against Lowerhouse, they had this arrogance, a good arrogance, and they're going to boss the games, etc. Gary and I, and Joe to a lesser degree, Dooch, we would play against the East Lancers and the Burnleys and Haslingden, and it was horrible playing against them because they had that arrogance, and it's hard work playing against teams like that. But it is a real thin line, Gary. If you remember, certainly Hazes, with Mick Tracy and Bob Grimshaw and these players, that it's a thin line because all of a sudden, as you've alluded to there, Dan, you go over that line and it becomes pig-headed, it becomes obnoxious, the senior players start falling out. And that's what happened at Haslingden, really, isn't it, Gary, if you remember, when they used to win the league for fun?
It is. And the team that got it right around that time was somebody like Baker, who, won the league, few years on the trot, World Cup winners or finalists and stuff like that, great set of players, had the same confidence and would get stuck in, when it wanted to. But I don't think there was one character in the team that anybody really disliked, or around the leagues they were well respected bunch of lads who played hard, but were good and stuff. Yeah, it is a fine line. This is the most enjoyable podcast I've been on in a long while, guys. Sorry, but it's well, mainly because you haven't said much, to be honest, Joe. But it's amazing. I think we were 3 or 4 games in when we had a first podcast this year, maybe, or whatever, and we were, there was a lot of doom and gloom. What's happening? Is it because we haven't had any pre-season? Have we got the strength in depth and all sort of thing? And I think we concluded at the end. We all went round the circle and came back and said, "This is a good side. Just don't panic."
Yeah.
And I'm sure that and what's been discussed and aired tonight, very few people who probably watch every week don't realise all that work that's going on, all that communication, that sort of team building, but a bit cheesy, but literally, that's going on. That's, I'm sure, massive contribution to what that run that's been going on, and I'm sure will continue going forward. So, fantastic conversation to be part of
this. Yeah, it is, Gary, and it as Dan's alluded to there, with the senior group within the team, and then the younger lads who come in and out and try and get the runs. Dan, what 2 or 3 players have a bad trot, and you've got Johnny Whitehead, as much as he's coming across here as being the most sensible bloke in the world. I've known Johnny since he was about 4. He has got this character about him. He is such a lovely, likeable lad. But he can, or when he was younger, he could flip. Joe Hawk, daft as a rush. Charlie's now older one. He can, what happens if within the dressing room that just changes? How close are you? It's a little bit like the definition of insanity. That you're only a flick away to it all going belly up. Could you see that within that dressing room or not? Or are you in complete control?
Oh, complete control. They're easy to manage, these lot. Absolutely not. I think, no, I don't get anxiety. I honestly cannot wait to walk into the dressing room to know what Johnny Whitehead's bringing on the weekend. And if he acts a certain way when he comes in and tries to be Mr. Serious or Mr. Mature, it certainly backfires very quickly, because that's my role, is to be the one that can rev him up. So, but that's probably once every 10 weeks I have to do that, because he comes walking in that room like, here we go, it's ready to go. So, and everyone, we all feed off that. And the other person I wanted to sort of mention within this whole chat is someone who I found intimidating. He'd look through me. I felt like I could learn to love him, but it was going to take some time. And obviously he's played his 500th game. Normally if you play 500 games, you'd run through a banner back home. So it was a big deal. So I'd like it to be a bigger deal for Charlie, but he's someone as well, which I tell you what he did. He gave me genuine belief that I'm the right person for the club, because I sensed that he wasn't going to be a part of it this year. His motivation levels weren't going to be there to play. And then when we started creating this culture dynamic within this dressing room, that everyone was flourishing as individuals. And certainly he's got his son playing in Henry. Like, how special is that to be able to go out there? And I feed off watching that, going, one day it'd be amazing if, I could be somewhere near Caleb, my son, whilst that's all going on, and getting to share those stories and this laughter and this absolute, genuine fun. We all, the days where you always go, it's, cricket can't be asked tomorrow. If anyone says that within our group, we know it's bullshit, because they all want to be there. We actually genuinely all want to be there, even if it's a washout day, because we're all going to have that much fun. And we're going to lift each other's spirits, because at the end of the day, everyone goes through tough trots, and a couple of guys within our group have gone through some really tough personal situations. And you know what? I identify, I know that. So as much as I'll take the piss out of them, I've got this genuine discussions we're having away from that, to make sure that we're understanding where everyone's at. Because if we all just attack each other in this piss take way and not have an understanding of what's happening within their real life, then that's where it goes wrong. So Jez, probably my diligence is probably a little bit more in that space to know where everyone's at before we are engaging in all this stuff. And by all means, I think when we go back to individuals slipping, or let's call it form slumps as well, again, we've built this dynamic that I know that Johnny's waiting for me and Ben at the top of the order. Me, Ben, Frankie miss out, I'm going to do it today. And I know vice versa. If you look at mine and Johnny's partnerships, I reckon we average about 2 batting together. And we've probably both got a fair few runs this year. So one says to me that we spend that much time together off the field, that we're not batting together out there. Or the other one is that we're actually got each other covered, basically. Thrive off the fact that if he's not there, I'm not there. And I can sense that with Ben. I can sense that with Frankie. I can sense that. So that's pretty much the core of our top 4. And then you put a Tom Walker in that, who I'm telling you, the kid's an unbelievable talent. And again, once we can get the best out of him, and it's just tailing down through that order to basically know that we thrive off covering each other. And I've always said that within a group, that if you can take great pride in trying to cover for your mate, that's the best feeling you'll get. So when, someone else does really well, we genuinely enjoy that success, because what it's done is it's covered up your blemish. And I can sit here and full well tell you that if I don't take wickets or make runs and we win games of cricket, I'm very comfortable with that, with where I'm at. And I think that's running through the group, that I'm telling you right now, Ben Heap is taking pure pride out of getting the best and watching Johnny Whitehead knock off a record, to watch a young kid try and win us a game of cricket. We're jumping and grabbing each other through that finishing moments to actually really embrace those moments, which sometimes can be hard for people who have always wanted it to be about them to win games of cricket and be the man and do it all. So we're getting some great pleasures. And also, like a Frankie has been nothing but more accommodating to me as passing the baton on as a professional he wanted at the club. And I'm not sure all the ones before him, I'm sure they're great guys and done a solid job, but Frankie's been someone that, with Spets, shared some great moments of talking about truly what he believed was right for the club. And again, Johnny sort of said it before that he was probably the start of something for the club to be able to take it in that right direction. And it's quite easy to probably stand there and go, a little bit standoffish and not sort of feel like this was my role. And he, people like him, he's been amazing. That makes us all as a club and a group go, we're on the right track here. And if we fall short from time to time, it's not through lack of trying. It's not through lack of genuine care for each other. It's just the way it's unfolded.
Yeah, and I'm guessing there that, if there was that blip, whether it's on a cricket, the form or an injury, or someone's just, as you've alluded to there, Dan, really, and it's fantastic to hear a personal matter, that the rest of the group would get them through that. You can manage those little blips. It's when you've possibly only got 2 or 3 of the main senior members of the team, and you've got 4 or 5 who've got poor form or personal issues or fitness issues, that then it's more difficult. You will carry these people through. I don't mean you yourself, Dan. I mean the team will carry these players through, which is fantastic to hear. Can we? I mean, we've been going now. It's brilliant. We're an hour and 20 minutes, so we're probably going to have to split this up into 2. I think I'd like to talk about and get some input from certainly from Dooch and Joe Martin around the last 10, 11, 12 games. The run that's been on, the actual runs that have been scored is phenomenal. I'm not sure. I know Dooch sent me some figures of certainly batting first, the scores, regular late 200s and a couple of 300s. How's your feeling, Dooch, around the team and around the selection side of it? And speaking to Paul Stanley, it is clearly exceptional, but it just seems like the norm at the moment, Dooch. What's your thoughts around that run? And I've not known anything like it.
No, and it's kind of different to how Lowerhouse first team have gone about trying to win games in previous years as well, because we've always been a side who would strangle a team and keep it, really, really try and contain a team with the ball. Whereas obviously, look at our scores since we lost that game to Burnley. Like you said, Jez, we've scored 290, 320, 380, 260, 290. So we've kind of stumbled on, whatever by accident or by design, a formula where we're now going to heavily rely on our superstar batting lineup, and that's going to help us take the wickets in the second innings. We've batted first every week since we lost to Burnley in the league on the 18th of May. Obviously, we won't have won the toss every single week, but clearly we've got a plan there that we're going to bat first. We're gonna compile a score and then put the squeeze on in the second innings with a massive score under our belt. It's obviously a lot easier to do, but that is a bit of a departure from how we've sort of played in previous years, definitely. Jez, you're on mute.
Sorry, Elisa was just pouring me another can.
Go on, Jez. Get it down, you. You deserve it.
No, I agree, Joy, and it is like you've said. Even Gary and I, when we going back, we were always wanted to defend. We always wanted to like we can battle. We're up against it with the we're the underdogs in all this. Whereas now, we just, and it's in a good way, we're bullying teams in that we just, we still have respect for the game, we still have respect for the opposition and everything else that's going on. But we are going to take over. That I've not seen anything like that. The way Ben and Johnny were batting at Middleton, and there was no slogging, there was no, it's just like this is how we're going to play. But do you feel, Joe Martin? I'm going to ask you about this because you were batting that top half. Is it because we're batting first a lot that's happening? Or do you think, on a good track, the opposition win the toss, they bat, they get 320. Would you still back our side to chase that?
I think we'd give it a good go. Definitely. I would.
In the same attitude?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, this is probably a kind of step removed, unexpected, I guess. But as I've got older, I've kind of and don't bat as much. I kind of think there's no benefit in going out with a really defensive mindset anymore. You might as well be bowled out for 120 in 20 overs than be 120 all out in 50 overs. There's no point. So I think if you were, and it goes to a point that Johnny made earlier around being fearless but not reckless with your with the batting. So yeah, I think it's just the mindset that we've got. So if we have to chase 200 plus, if we have to chase 300, why not?
Yeah, and it's the one thing we haven't seen this team do, isn't it? Yet we haven't seen us chase a score yet, a significant score. But like Joe says, if you look at the scores we've posted batting first, there's no reason to think why that's not going to be well within our capabilities. I know it's a slightly different mindset chasing to posting, of course, but we've definitely got the talent there.
Yeah. To add my little two bob worth in this conversation, it stemmed back to Burnley line in the sand. And I'm sure Ben come into the room with Dooch at some stage and probably said this as well. I sternly said to Ben, we as a group don't deserve the right to be able to choose what we do. From this point going forward, Ben, you win the toss, we'll bat. We lose the toss, they'll stick us in. And that was my mentality. I said, I don't care, Ben, you open the batting, so you're setting the tone here. I don't care if it's an absolute sticky one, it's going to get better. I don't care if it's good to bat on first to dry out more, whatever way it worked out. I said, you win the toss, you're going to bat, because this group, where we were, we didn't deserve the right to have to dictate terms on how we want to go about chasing these totals or setting. And as it's unfolded, it's ironic. Ben's been winning a lot of the tosses. I think he's lost 2, or something like that. So we know we're turning up. Johnny the same. Our top 4, we're turning up knowing what we're doing. And we're coming out there with clarity within our headspace we're going out there and we're going to put a total on the board. And so the way I'd give the analogy before is, if we were chasing at the start of the year, clear the row. If we're chasing 140, we would have chased a 120. If we're chasing 300, we would have chased a 270. If we're chasing the 350, we would chase the 330. So my mindset has now turning within the group, and this is part of our discussion that's going on. And when you ask Joe Martin, will we chase it down? He says, we'll give it a go. Honestly, that's about the right assumption of, I reckon, where we're at within a chase at the moment. But we are a hell of a lot more clearer than what we were. So we are in a space, I think, that hopefully soon, that you throw a 300 on the board, we'll go and chase that down with 5 to spare. So I think we're getting there, but if we're true to ourselves, we're not. But I tell you what, we're a hell of a lot better that if there's 120 on the board, we're going to go out and get it, and we'll probably get it in 20 overs. Because our mindset is, which the guys keep saying, is let's be fearless but not be reckless. And sometimes that's hard to understand. If you're young, what does that mean? But when you're mature and at an age where you are, you can truly say to yourself, that shit, I was pretty reckless there, and you put your hand up to that. As a young kid, we're trying to understand that and trying to deliver that to them. So I would prefer one of our younger kids to go and be reckless, so we can rein them back from there and not just continue to just hold themselves back and go, I thought I was brave there, Dan. I went across one ball and I tried to do this. Now we're talking about compiling a whole innings and all the outcomes. So if today is going across our stumps and trying to hit that ball as far as you can over deep mid-wicket, you can accept getting out that way, but then don't turn to me and try and lap one and say that, we said just be fearless. Because to me, that's reckless, because that wasn't within our plans of what we're trying to do. So when we say that, all the guys that go out there, I'm sure you can go to all of them and say, okay, where's your target area today? And Henry will tell you, Charlie will tell you, Johnny will tell you. And that's just trying to get clarity within our roles and within our space of what we're trying to achieve, which then is resulting to those big scores. So, I don't walk out there feeling like we're just going to be a team that, we've been getting 250s, we'll just get 60 one week. We won't, because we're a lot more calculated within what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and as you've said there, Dan, it is a little bit, it's probably a bit easier for you to understand that and get your mindset around it. And Johnny Whitehead, now that he's back with us and he's in such a good, he's in good form and a good frame of mind. The younger players they'll be thinking, "Crack, I don't really know what he means here. I've got my shot now, and I know where I'm going to play, and I know where I'm going to hit that bowler, and I'm going to hit it as far as I can. It's going to go for 2 sixes. But then, cracky, I've got out and I maybe shouldn't have played it. That is an experience thing. I understand that. And going forward, they will learn from you guys who get out. Johnny will get out to the shots. Ben gets out to shot one of his best shots. But it's not the end of the world. There's not bats thrown all around the dressing room or, they're sulking for 2 or 3 days, even though the team have won, which is what, not just at Lowerhouse, that happened in a lot of places, but I get the impression now within your group that doesn't happen now. You win if you've failed or an individual's failed or played a really poor shot or bowled a really poor spell of 2 or 3 overs, but you've won, we learn from it. And I think that is where, you as a team to watch you all, it's outstanding. It really is. You can see that work that's gone into it and the way that you're managing the games. I'm really confident. I think, and who knows, Ben's going to lose some tosses. Who knows, other teams might listen to this podcast and start batting first when they win the toss and ask us to chase. And I genuinely think you will. I think you'll do going forward.
Yep.
So, Joe Martin, I think we went with 10 or 11 games, including the cups, and gone through there undefeated. The cup final, what's your thoughts around that, Joe Martin?
Jess, this
a win. Yeah, you get such positivity from Dan, and then you go to Joe, and he's
because I'm trying to be. I'm very, very positive, but I don't want to be too positive because I think we're gonna win. I always have this kind of, I don't know. I always think about I always have pictures in my mind of who lifts trophies. And interestingly, when we played Littlebrook last year, I couldn't picture it, but this year I can, which is a bit weird.
Right, so
maybe ask somebody else because it's not very useful.
No, it is a bit weird, but you are weird yourself, so that's why you come out with weird answers. What I'm asking you is about the occasion, the team. You've done fantastically well. It's another final at home. Last year's was a little bit difficult. The weather didn't help, and the breaks that went within it. So let's forget that. The occasion. You've got to be looking forward to that, and the build up to it, and the amount. We're guaranteed 2,000-3,000 people are going to be watching you. You must be excited for that, Joe.
Extremely.
Well, try telling your face.
Yeah, no, I am. It's probably the first time I've not been that anxious. I can remember talking to you, Jez, in 2011 when we first won the league with the iteration of this team. How I hadn't slept for 2 weeks.
And you nearly didn't come out your house. You said I nearly didn't want to come down to the ground.
I've always struggled with Jez.
I know you have, but with the likes of Dan around you now, who's brand new to you, and all your other friends down at the club, you will get there. You are getting there. Go on, Johnny Whitehead, the cup final. What's your thoughts?
I think it's going to be a great game because I think that Tomlin are a good cup side. We've got a good pro and then more. I just think the form, because of the form that we're in, the mindset we're in, I just think we've got a great chance. Obviously, it's a home tie as well with the fans behind us. The interesting fact, it's the first final I'll have ever played at Lowerhouse. So me and Danny are making our debut final appearances at Lowerhouse Cricket Club this year. The only two I've been involved with, Plural and Church.
That has really surprised me, that. I didn't realise that, Johnny.
No, so I can't wait. It's going to be a good day.
Brilliant. I'm just wondering if Dukes were going to come out with some other facts that were completely false.
We've never ever lost to Tomlin in a Worsley Cup final. Ever.
Home or away. Dan, we'll wrap this up in the next 5 or 10 minutes and I'll come round you all. at your time at Rishton and at Norden, you will have played in some big games. Norden's a great club, and Rishton, cracker there. Fantastic history. You'll have played in some big games and etc. And I know you'll be excited about this. What's your thoughts compared with your previous stints as a professional, compared with how you're looking forward to the game, in August against Tom Whiddon?
Yeah, I was pushing shit uphill with Rishton, just trying to win games of cricket. So that was enough for me. Going out there every week, just having to, and I had really good people around me, so I enjoyed that experience for what it was, and it helped put me more as probably a stronger individual, individual performances and getting a team on my back. So that was for the right reasons. And then I had a different experience at Norden, because it was 2 years when the Central Lancs was cut in half. So it was strong cricket. So bottom team beat the top team. We won the treble both years. So we had some great success at Norden. And so I remember playing in those cup finals. I remember the situations. I remember being me as an individual at that point in time, daunted back to just get it done, find a way. And that's sort of what I've always sort of been built on. This time leading into the Todmorden, I've thought about it already. I've thought about it multiple times. I'm thinking about my teammates. I'm thinking about who I can get more out of that day. But ultimately, I'm probably more thinking about the experience, my family, my kids, my friends who are going to come along, this group that we've built within ourselves in such a short period of time, what it means to all of them, and really watching them flourish as individuals on the day. So I look at the whole aspect of it now, whereas probably back then I looked at that game of cricket and what I'm going to do as an individual. So now I'm sort of just trying to think about this whole experience and take it for what it is. But the one thing I never let myself now is be overawed by occasions, because that was always my thing that I always felt, was my probably failure. So more looking at how to just enjoy that experience on that day, and hopefully we do well, I do well. The team wins a game of cricket and we get to celebrate long and hard together. My biggest thing for all those is I fucking love celebrating. So if I can make sure we win that day, then we can party hard. So that's my golden ticket to success. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to just the occasion, and I know the club spoke about when I got here again. If you do make a final and you can host it at home, what an unbelievable experience. And again, I think if you look at my cup run in my form as a cup run, again, that's probably what I do within my own mindset. When I go in at 3-12 against Haslingden, all I'm thinking in my head is do it for everyone else. So same thing will happen on that day where, God hope I get an unbelievable Johnny or Ben or Frankie on that day, but if it's not them, it'll be me. So we've sort of got that instilled belief within our group, and it might be that young Henry who we've learnt to flourish. It might be those guys, that Charlie in that key moment, or any one of them. I actually find that if there's 20 on the board and Joe Martin's out there batting, like I can tell you right now, there's full faith and trust that they're going to find a way to just make sure that we're the team that's holding the trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that is important. What you were saying, the team ethics now are there. I can tell that it's 100% there. But the occasion for the families, for the, and it is great. We need to have the nice weather for that and for the whole occasion, because they are, without a doubt, and you've done this and you'll have done this back in Australia, the memories that last forever, and no one can take them away. The families and everything else, can remember that forever. So what we'll wrap this up very shortly. I'm going to go through. I'm going to come to Dooch in a minute, and then to Gary, just to see if you have any comments before we wrap it up, and then we'll go to Joe Martin and Johnny White, and then finally we'll come back to Dan. From me, thanks very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure chatting to you and understanding your theories on cricket, and you're almost a psychologist the way you're talking about the players and the work in their minds and getting things. It's been really entertaining from me, to listen to that, and I'm sure the listeners will think exactly the same. Dooch, final comment from yourself.
Yeah, just echo that. Great insight into what's going on inside the changing rooms, which none of us, obviously apart from Johnny, Dan, and Joe, get to hear about. It's really interesting and really impressive to hear. The way that we're methodically going about things and think. The upturn in form has not been a fluke. Clearly, it's
No.
the result of a process that's been put in place, and long may it continue.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Dooch. Yeah, I agree. It's so good to get the insight from him there. Gary, again, me and you go back years of being in dressing rooms, and it fascinates me how, and it's not a criticism of me or you or Stan or anyone else who was in the dressing room then, but this was just, well, we didn't even think of it, did we? We didn't even think about the psychology of each player and getting the best out. We had a really good team spirit, but you listen to this compared with what we had, and I'm not doing all the doom and gloom side of it. It's so refreshing. What's your final thoughts on this podcast?
Yeah, you're right, Jez. You touched a bit on it. Almost captaining in the 90s, 80s, 90s were more about almost being an administrator and just making sure everybody turned up with the right bit of kit and knew which ground we were playing at and everything else back in those days. I mean, this is another level, and it's fantastic to hear. And I'm obviously, I'm not around the club week in, week out. I'm watching from afar, so I'm just seeing the game. So I don't get a lot of the chat, and I don't see all the casual side and just how the interactions and stuff. But from being up there at the weekend, talking to a few people who I do trust and I have a good interpretation of things. Nothing but positive news. I saw your good lady and one of your little ones who had baggy blue on, and that said a lot. The t-shirts on and things like that. And that said a lot. So great job you appear to be doing. Getting the best out of everyone and obviously contributing yourself. I mean, we haven't sort of focused too much on your own performances and things like that, but it's okay. You're encouraging everybody else, but those younger ones, when they see you putting your own methods into your own game as well and getting the results, that in itself as well is another thing that they say, oh, he's not just talking about it, he's doing it as well, he's applying it himself. So fantastic to see. Let's just have a super strong finish to the season and make sure everybody's happy at the end.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really good. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, because we're still in it for the three trophies. I know the leagues. There's a few games we'll have to make up, a few points we'll have to make up, but it's still there. So I'm going to come to Joe Martin and let Johnny Whitehead be the next one on before we finish with Dan. Joe Martin, have you enjoyed yourself tonight? You nearly broke out in a smile.
I've had a wonderful time. Always a pleasure, Jez. And it's funny, really, because you discuss a lot of things when you're playing the game, when you're playing at the weekend, but the actual kind of thought process behind it is probably something that you forget about. So it's really, really good to hear what Johnny and Dan have said about their processes and everything. So I just thanks for coming on and taking the time. This is a long old recording.
No, it's good.
So thanks for coming on, guys.
It is great. But Joe, just one point you said there, and this is where, and again, we can go back to Frankie and Ben's leadership and Charlie. You're probably now, it's the norm that this is the behaviour, that this is how the dressing room is run and the thinking about your fellow players. So, which is even better that that's the norm rather than, oh, we'll do it one week and then not do it for three. So, Joe, thanks for everything you do. I know I've taken the mickey a little bit, but you do it back. You're really helpful in the co-host in this. So thanks very much, Joe Martin. Johnny, your final few thoughts before we move back to Dan and close down the podcast?
Fantastic evening with you, fellow gentlemen. Thank you for having me on again. It's always great to be on the house cast. I feel like I'm becoming a regular member, actually, Jez. I've been secretly added to the list, maybe. But no, Salpy, thanks for joining, pal. I love you to bits. You're a hero. And let's just keep going as we're going. It's as simple as that. Hopefully we can keep providing the entertainment to the fans. You guys make sure you keep coming on watching and supporting, and I've got a really good feeling that we're going to win something this year, if not more than something. So stay tuned, and over and out.
Brilliant, thanks, Johnny. You're not a co-host yet. You're a bit like a Smashy and Smiley there with your finishing. But
it's not far off, Jez. I'll be petitioning, I think, for Johnny to join the gang. So
you'll have. There's tough, there'll be a tough interview for him.
I'm like Stormer. I've got my seat.
Yeah, you got your seat. Yeah, no, I won't say. But Johnny, thanks very much, and keep that good run going. Keep being positive in the way you are. Dan, just from me, and I know the spectators will be thinking exactly the same. It's great to hear your history and the way you developed through cricket. The way you think about cricket is fascinating me. It really has given me an insight in the mental side and the positive mental side that you brought into the game. So thanks very much for coming on. Final few words from yourself before we close it down, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Obviously, firstly, thanks for having me on. And it's been a little bit of a time coming, and we've talked about sort of getting on together and having these moments. And I suppose probably a thank you for me. It's helped me probably reflect what it's been so far and what it's meant to me and my family so far for this little bit of a journey. And also just a bit of reinforcement that we are doing the right things and we are on the right track, because sometimes you can be a little bit sort of blind to all of that. Definitely trying to stay humble within all the positive feedback, but also taking a lot of fulfillment out of getting the positive feedback that we're on the right track. And hopefully, the next time we're talking, there's a bit more success happening and we're doing the right things, which I believe we will. Hopefully get to see you all in the flesh at some stage soon and share a beer and hopefully chat some more stories. But for me, it's over and out. And thanks, Johnny, for your love. I love you back. You sleep tight tonight, kiddo. We'll wake up with a smile in the morning.
When you next down, Gary? When are you next down, Gary?
Not sure yet, mate. Just trying to see if I can fit another couple of dates in. Going away for a bit in August, but so I might miss the cup final. But I don't know yet. I'll let you know.
Cool.
Brilliant. Dan, thanks for those words, and just keep it all going, all the players. I'm sure. I think it will be worthwhile once the listeners have listened to this, that we want you on again towards the end of the season. We can reflect even further on what's happened and the outcomes. So thanks to everyone. It's a long old podcast, this one, so it's probably going to be 2 episodes. But thanks very much to all the hosts, co-hosts, and the guests. Please support our sponsors and keep following the house, and let's get those crowds even to more records. So thanks to everyone for listening. This is the Housecast, and we'll catch you all soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Send more house to save the house.